So good morning, everybody. It was a real pleasure to see so many of you at the welcome drinks this evening, last night. But for those of you who were not able to join us, really just wanted to say thank you so much to everybody for taking the time to join us in Edinburgh for this year's annual conference of the ICN. It's a fantastic event. We've got a fantastic program of discussions and meetings set up. And I really, really hope that we will all get the very best out of this. Before I kick off on the main introduction, just a few points of housekeeping, if I can. First of all, in the very unlikely event of a fire alarm, please do leave the building immediately, and we will have our venue staff on hand to assist us and guide us to the nearest available exit and to the muster point outside. For lunch for today and for the remainder of the conference, lunch will be served 3 floors down, that's at level -2. Again, venue staff will be on hand to direct you, and please do ask them if you have any questions. And finally, we do have a professional photographer roaming to take some snaps along the way. We hope that you will all participate in that, but if you do have any concerns and don't want to be included in any photographs, then please do let event staff know. That's absolutely fine, and we will accommodate you. So with those few housekeeping points out of the way, let's get on with the real business of the day. As I said, we've got an incredibly exciting lineup for this year's annual conference. And I think it's such an important moment for the ICN, for us all to have the opportunity to come together at a time of great change in markets across the globe. We're seeing the continued impact of digital transformation, emerging technologies. We're seeing the ever-changing needs and demands of consumers and continuing cost of living pressures. And we all come together at this moment to really learn from one another's experience, to really think carefully about how, as a community of competition enforcers, we can take forward the best opportunities and tackle those challenges together. We want to develop best practice, and we want to build the common understanding and cooperation that strengthens competition law enforcement across borders. And I think it's that spirit of deep collaboration that was so evident at the welcome drinks last night that really lies at the heart of the ICN. That sense that we can work together to benefit from the collective energy, insight, and experience that sits in this room today. Now, I want to take a moment just to thank our ICN colleagues, particularly the working group and special project members, without whom we simply could not have put together such a program of events. And your considerable events are really what makes this annual conference possible. I do also want to say a particular thank you to the CMA team led by Eleni. The team have worked absolutely tirelessly to pull this conference together, and I'm sure you will all recognize the huge effort, the superhuman effort, I think, that has gone into making this event possible. Now, as I say, we've got an incredibly exciting program ahead of us, and to begin, it's my great pleasure to introduce our esteemed chair of the ICN, Andreas Mundt. Andreas really needs no introduction, but as chair of the ICN, president of the Bundeskartellamt, Andreas has been a driving force in promoting international competition cooperation and strengthening competition policy around the world. So please do join me in welcoming Andreas to formally open the conference.
Well, thank you so much. Dear Minister Matters, dear Sarah, dear NGAs, dear ICN community, welcome to the 24th annual ICN conference here in Edinburgh, in the capital of Scotland, in the UK. First time that we are in the UK with an ICN conference. And it's a real pleasure to see you all in this room. I must say, every year I do this, and I do that for a great many years already. I'm always overwhelmed by the crowd, by these many people, and that we meet here, and it's always a great pleasure and an honor to be with you once a year here in this room and in other rooms, of course. Our host this year is the CMA, the UK Competition Agency, a founding member of the ICN. a very active ICN member of the steering group, working group, co-chair, and an organizer of great events, like the Tech Forum that you hosted yesterday, and which was extremely successful. My head of digital at least told me last night she's going home with lots of ideas, having no idea if she can do all that in Germany, but that is another point with regard to the digital situation in Germany. But it seems the CMA is also very good at hosting an ICN annual conference, as it looks, and many thanks, Sarah, for the invitation, and many thanks that we are allowed to be here. We have come a long way since the first annual ICN conference in Naples. I was back in 2002. I was there. It was a good conference with around 120 participants. If you look at this conference, we have hundreds of participants, at least 400, something between 400 and 500, and you see how the ICN has developed over the years. The ICN conference is always the pinnacle of the ICN year, a face-to-face meeting after thousands of emails, hundreds of working hours by the co-chairs, by the project leads, after dozens of video calls, and here we present the work products of last year, and we set the course for the future, of course. And in a nutshell, I want to look at both very, very shortly. How was the ICN year, and what will the future bring to a certain extent? So I would like to base my very short assessment on three headlines. One is focus, one is inclusiveness, and one is implementation. Why these three headlines? When I became chair of the ICN steering group in 2013, these were exactly my headlines, my leitmotif for what I wanted to achieve with the ICN, and this is why I want to look at the last year under these headlines. The first one is focus. It means, do we tackle the right topics? Are we doing the right things? Are we setting the right priorities? And if you look at the work products of the last ICN year, you will see that personally I believe we have tackled all the problems that mattered to us and that went to the heart of ICN members. The Agency Effectiveness Working Group is presenting a report on measuring agency effectiveness. The Cardell Working Group presents a chapter on raids in an enforcement manual and has held a very successful workshop in October in Mexico City. The Advocacy Working Group is presenting a report on strategies with the judiciary. What could be more important? I mean, we do cases, but in the very end, it's the courts who decide. So this is really a topic that matters a lot. The Merger Working Group. Mergers have been a certain focus in the last ICN year, represents new recommended practices, our gold standards on coordinated effects, on unilateral effects. I think also a very successful year for the ICN Working Group on mergers. Besides that, we have held a merger workshop in Taiwan in November 2024. The Unilateral Conduct Working Group is finalizing the workbook chapter on exclusive dealing and also had held a workshop in Rio de Janeiro. We have tackled other projects, important projects, on competition concerns in food markets, on sustainability. We had a workshop hosted by Benoît Curé in Paris. The Chief Economist Workshop in Hungary, the Tech Forum here in Edinburgh yesterday. So in a nutshell, I think we have done a lot of work, and we have done and presented a lot of excellent work. The second headline is inclusiveness. It is important to me personally to involve all ICN members, all agencies, regardless of size, of experience, and of resources, because we are a very heterogeneous club. We have very small agencies and we have very large ones, and we have to get them all together, and we have to have an agenda, a program that is important for all of us. I think also here we have been successful. We managed to include all agencies. I hope we also managed to include the NGAs. Also, this is very important to me that we engage with NGAs for two reasons. First is we need a perspective from all angles on our world, and the second one is if we're only among us, we tend a little bit to tell each other how good we are and how successful, and sometimes from time to time I think it's a good idea to have some constructive criticism among us to see if we are really as successful as we believe. The ICN has grown and keeps growing. What started with 16 founding members from 14 jurisdictions in 2001 has grown into 110 members when I started as chair in 2013 to more than 140 members today. ICN events literally cover the globe. We have had events in Australia, in Botswana, South Africa, Brazil, Mexico, South Korea, Singapore, Poland, Ukraine, in the UK. Our co-chairs come from Chile, Finland, Botswana, the Philippines, Azerbaijan, Hong Kong, Egypt. I could continue, I only can name a few today. The number of co-chairs rose from 2 to 3 to 4. Why is this? This is not just about creating leadership roles. There's a purpose behind that, and the purpose is that we put young agencies along with mature agencies and train them on the job, how leadership works in the ICN. What do you have to do? We do not throw these agencies into the cold water, and I think that works very well. And we'll see more members taking on leadership positions also in the steering group. The third headline, implementation, in a nutshell, this is the underlying goal of the ICN. We do not produce papers for their own sake. We produce papers, we do our work in order to have an impact. And ICN and its work products serve as the benchmark for many agencies around the world. Even if you talk to young competition agencies in Europe, which had benefited a lot from help from the European Commission through twinning projects and all of this, if you talk to them, they will tell you a lot of things that we knew, a lot of things on how we have set up the agency stem from ICN work, and I think that is good. The UNCTAD makes use of ICN work papers. We have OECDized many ICN work papers. The OECD is a very close coordination partner. So I think we have made good progress. My personal and final milestone to the ICN as ICN chair is the new operational framework that will be presented to you and hopefully approved by the membership at this conference. We have increased the number of working group co-chairs. We have increased the number of steering group members. We have introduced a mechanism to get in new steering group members who have not been a member of the steering group before. So all to encourage wider participation in ICN leadership. And we will see more of a change also in the steering group. If we have a slide now, I would very much like to present to you the new steering group, that is proposed to you, to the ICN membership, as the incoming steering group proposed by the outgoing steering group. There's not very much of a change, but there is some change. We recommend heavily to introduce the competition agency of Egypt to the new steering group, hopefully approved by all of you if you don't object loudly right now. I hear no objection, so that is very good. Much better than at the first conference where we have discussed paper also in the last group, and I remember the Finnish head of an agency who sprang up exactly at this moment and said, "I cannot agree." That was a critical moment for the ICN, I can tell you, so I'm very happy that it works much better today. Another change is the chair of the steering group. After holding this job for 12 years, I'm not a candidate for being the chairman of the steering group of the ICN this year. The steering group will elect a new chair tomorrow. We have an excellent candidate, but it's the steering group who elects this candidate. So I'm not going to tell you today. And if you want to know who will be the new chairman as of Friday afternoon, when we leave this conference, you have to attend the dinner tomorrow, because we are going to elect the new chair tomorrow, and you will hear at the dinner who the new chair, who the steering group has elected as a new chair. I can assure you it's going to be a great choice, and you will be very happy. Of course, there will be other changes. We have seen in the last year in how far we have new topics, new debates about the general purpose of competition, how our work is embedded in a bigger economic context that is becoming more and more important. We will discuss in how far we contribute to growth, in how far we contribute to competitiveness, the big headline of the new Commission in Brussels, but not only there, also here in the UK. This is a very important topic. The first plenary session, the host showcase, is exactly about these topics, another example that we are at the pulse of the time. So I do believe the network is in good shape, a well-working setting is in place, and I wish all of you a wonderful conference, constructive and lively debates. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Andreas. As ever, you've been able to give us a remarkable history lesson and dangle a tantalizing sequel to come tomorrow. So everybody will be waiting with bated breath for the next developments on the ICN front. But thank you so much. I know we will have opportunities through the course of this week to really fully express our huge gratitude for everything that you have done as chair of the ICN. It really is a remarkable achievement over the last 12 years, and perhaps just a round of appreciation now for that huge contribution from Andreas. Now, for our next opening address, it really is a privilege to be joined on stage by Minister Justin Madders. Justin Madders is the minister from the UK government that has particular responsibility for the UK's competition regime, not only, in fact, for the competition regime. As Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State at the UK's Department of Business and Trade, Minister Madders actually has a very broad remit, portfolio of responsibilities that includes employment rights, subsidy control, consumer protection, and of course, competition policy. And I know that you have really played an instrumental role in shaping here in the UK the landscape that benefits businesses, that drives the right regulatory frameworks, and really enables competition to allow businesses and investment to flourish and support the growth of the economy, as Andreas has just been outlining. So we are absolutely honoured and privileged to have your company today. And without further ado, I would like to pass the floor to Minister Justin Madders. Thank you.
So, thank you very much, Sarah. And before I start, I just want to thank you for your leadership of the CMA and your vital work to promote competition in our markets and, of course, to protect businesses and consumers. I know you very much share the government's belief in the importance of high consumer confidence and properly functioning markets to drive economic growth. And I also want to thank Andreas and the International Competition Network for your commitment to bringing organisations together so that countries across the globe can work more closely on competition policy and enforcement. And I'd like to thank you, Andreas, for your 12 years as chair. We've had 6 prime ministers in that time, so I think you've done pretty well to last that long. But seriously, that contribution is magnificent, and I wish your successor as much success as you have enjoyed in the role. So it is a pleasure to host you here in the UK, in Edinburgh, and I hope that you do have time to explore this beautiful and historic city, as well as having a productive and insightful conference, and do make the most of the good weather because it doesn't always last for too long in the UK. Without further ado, we had a new government last July following a general election, a Labour government. We have made it one of our main priorities to focus on economic growth. The Prime Minister has put our growth mission at the front and centre of everything that we do. And I recognise that policymakers and regulators across the globe are similarly asking the same fundamental question: how can competition policy best promote growth, innovation and productivity? We in the UK have been closely following the legislative reforms and policy initiatives developed in Europe, Australia and beyond, so that we can draw on the best practices in other jurisdictions. And given this room is full of economic expertise, I'm going to controversially start with disagreeing with the words of the noted British economist Robert Coase, who stated that he had grown tired of antitrust because when the prices went up, the judges said it was monopoly. When the prices went down, they said it was predatory pricing. And when they stayed the same, they said it was tacit collusion. So, to the contrary, I actually see antitrust and your role as competition authorities as absolutely central to our shared future economic success. We know that an open and fair competition and vibrant free market are essential ingredients to securing economic growth, and thereby generating the investment, innovation and job creation that flow as a result of that. And from that growth, of course, for politicians it's very important that we can then secure increased investment in public services. So that is why, as part of our growth mission, we're making sure that bodies like the CMA are striking the correct balance between taking action where it's needed to promote competition and protect consumers, but not stifling growth with slow or disproportionate interventions. We recently published our proposals for a new strategic steer for the Competition and Markets Authority. Our steer seeks to orientate the CMA's activities around the government's priorities and our growth mission in particular. I should emphasise that we have a rock-solid commitment to respect the operational independence of the CMA, and our strategic steers are a long-established feature of the UK's approach. And our steer asks the CMA to go further in driving international competitiveness within the 8 key growth-driving sectors we have outlined in our industrial strategy, where they have the discretion to do so. And it asks them to maintain a clear focus on tackling genuine harms to UK-based consumers and businesses. That in turn promotes trust and deters abuse. The strategic steer also asks the CMA to minimise uncertainty for businesses by being proactive, transparent, timely, predictable and responsive in its engagement. We've asked for them to be the best in class in competition authorities for all they interact with. And there's a lot of competition out there for that title, looking around this room, if you'll excuse the pun. And we know that under Sarah's leadership, the CMA has already taken significant steps in focusing its approach, so it's always got growth and investment in mind. That includes its work for the new Growth and Investment Council to identify opportunities for greater competition. And I am grateful for Sarah and her team's laser-like focus on increased pace, proportionality and predictability, and improved processes across the CMA's activities. With continued and targeted reform, the government has full confidence that the CMA will build on this momentum, that it will have its sights trained firmly on more direct engagement with businesses, speeding up decision-making to deliver more certainty for investors and adopt a more agile approach to promoting competition. And this reset doesn't just apply to the CMA. We're conscious that over-regulation more broadly is acting as a drag anchor on growth, with some studies suggesting an impact of 3 to 4% of GDP from too much red tape. The Prime Minister has therefore tasked regulators across government to report back with proposals on what they can do to unlock more potential in their respective sectors and spur growth across the country. With important new planning reforms also underway to stop important new development projects being hampered by overzealous regulatory hoop jumping, and of course, an important part of the CMA's role is to help identify markets where ineffective regulation is holding back competition and innovation. So yes, we are being unapologetically ambitious about easing burdens on business. We want to make sure that we have a regulatory environment which helps more than hinders growth. But I know that everyone will agree that it's important to have strong, effective competition authorities in place to keep things in check. Competition authorities play a hugely important role here in the UK by stimulating growth as well as protecting consumers. And the most recent impact assessment showed that the CMA returned an average of £23 of benefits to UK consumers for every £1 of UK taxpayer money spent. We've also seen great examples of the CMA's work to protect consumers, including their challenging of supermarkets to ensure loyalty schemes deliver genuine value for money, as well as pushing for greater competition between petrol forecourts so motorists aren't ripped off. So we very much want to ensure that the CMA has the tools it needs to take enforcement action where it needs to, which is why we have brought forward a suite of new powers for the CMA through the Digital Markets Competition and Consumers Act, which came into effect this year. The Act includes enhancements to the CMA's competition powers alongside new direct enforcement powers for consumer protection. The new powers will allow the CMA to tackle misleading and unfair practices head-on, such as fake reviews and drip pricing by requiring full price disclosure up front, as well as powers to address those annoying subscription traps that we all fall into from time to time. And through the Act, the CMA now has flexible and proportionate tools to support more open and fair digital markets, making it easier for innovative firms to enter the market, compete fairly, and benefit from more investment to grow. Through the Act, the CMA now has also greater ability to cooperate with its international partners. This is especially important when we are seeing an increasingly global nature in competition cases and merger transactions. This makes the dialogue and collaboration facilitated by the ICN all the more important. It's why we are also pleased to have concluded negotiations on a competition cooperation agreement with the EU months into our new government. Through closer working between the CMA, European Commission and competition regulators in the EU member states, we will see more effective enforcement of our competition laws, which will help to support businesses and protect consumers in the UK, EU and further afield. This form of international cooperation is a huge step forward, and we're certainly in the market for further discussions with interested partners. So in closing, the regulatory reform agenda is a key opportunity as part of the government's growth mission. We want to make sure that the right checks and balances are being made while we strive for greater innovation and investment in a future-facing economy. This conference is a great moment to reflect on these efforts and those of governments and authorities around the world so that we can learn from each other and help one another. In bringing competition agencies together and sharing insights and best practice, we can deliver effective competition enforcement together. We can boost the economy and we can protect businesses and consumers both here and around the world. And I think that is a shared objective that we have greatly enjoyed discussing with you. So on that note, I'd like to thank you for your time today and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you so much, Minister Madders. I think it's so important for us as we reflect on the discussions that we're about to have, to hear that endorsement, to hear the importance of competition policy, not just because we all find it intellectually interesting, but because it actually has a real world value, that it can make a difference to our economies across the globe, that it can make a difference for the people who live in our countries, for the businesses who want to thrive. And I think just that central importance is so important to hear, and really appreciate your time. I hope you will also enjoy some of the discussions that we will continue to have through the course this morning. So if I can just close this opening session with a final round of appreciation, both to Minister Madders and also to Andreas Mundt. Thank you.